Support for Podcast by Night is provided by Midnight Syndicate. To learn more, please visit midnightsyndicate.com.
All Tremere all the time, because yeah.
All Tremere all the time. Roar, give us a soul.
Because that's what I like it.
Oh wait, no, that was the Salubri motto. All right. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Once again, it is that time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls. That's right. Sorry, that was awful, but I just had to go there. It is the one you've been waiting for. It is the one Jen and I have been dying to get to. This is also our final podcast in the Clans Major. So after this one, everybody will have, at least something to do with the big clans, that they know exactly what they're trying to do, what they're going to look for, and how they're going to play it. And this time, we are definitely talking about who, Jen?
Clan Tremere.
That's right, Clan Tremere. All Tremere all the time.
Coding Clan, yay!
We, in our humble opinion, we are definitely saving the best for last.
It is a very humble opinion.
It is quite humble, but still, you're listening to this, so we appreciate that. It's definitely something near and dear to our hearts. It's something that I've come to learn through studying the outline, reading the clan books, playing one.
Yeah.
That Tremere are, I don't know. We're gonna cover it, but I just feel that somehow they really tap into what I personally am looking for out of like a vampire game. I mean, I know we talked about this before, Jen. My first ever character was a gangrel. And I will definitely go out and say that I chose that because of Protean, the discipline, because it was more Dracula-like. I was in high school. What do you want?
Well, yeah. I can't say anything. My very first clan was Toreador. And I picked it because I was a music major and I sing. And I was like, oh, well, I'm a girly girl who likes singing and music's awesome and stuff. And I like romance novels. And here's my tragic backstory. That was when I was young. When I was a child, I felt like a child. And I clung to foolish things. But
and that is not to downplay or insult the Toreador.
That isn't.
It is just, that is very true. That is a thing that is true, that at certain points in your life you are drawn to those different clans. Which I hope we've covered that idea that certain archetypes, certain individuals' mindsets are drawn to these clans for a reason.
Yes, and it's not. And this is not to take away from the Gangrel or the Toreador. They're amazing clans to play, but I think you and I, when we were younger, we were at just very different places in our lives. We definitely had our own perspectives walking in the door about vampire and what we wanted and how we wanted to play it. I know I was super influenced by Forever Night, and so I was very much into the angst and ennui of like Nick and Jeanette, and Toreador was right up my alley. I loved Interview with a Vampire, so Louis, why are you always whining? Toreador was the clan for me. That was how I perceived what a vampire was. Just like for you, you're like Protean, that's very Dracula. That's how you were perceiving what a vampire was. And nowhere in my worldview of vampires did I think of Tremere.
No.
That was just not in my perspective of what a vampire could be.
Absolutely. That is something incredible that you said that. It was like the idea of wizard vampire? What is this, Dungeons and Dragons? What? Psh, there's no spell casting in White Wolf.
There's no spell casting. There's no magic. What?
Magic. Bah. That's for those mages over there.
Yeah,
those guys huddling in the corner there looking all like, yeah, you know what's up. We're vampires. That's what it is. Blood, sex, and rock and roll.
It's all about the dark leather and, your Doc Martens and your angsty ennui. That's what it's all about. Not about, wearing hoods and carrying grimoires.
That's right. Gothic punk.
And honestly, I didn't know much about Clan Tremere until I moved to California and I was in our very first LARP group. And our storyteller, Patrick, was like, oh my God, and here is Clan Tremere. Let me tell you, he was like a Tremere Jehovah's Witness. He just is like, can I share with you the good news of your Lord and Savior, Tremere? And I was like, okay. And he did, and I was converted. And Clan Tremere is now my favorite clan. Absolutely, hands down, my favorite clan. It is one of the most complex clans of all the clans of vampires. They have the most extensive backstory of any of them. I mean, just they have the crazy stuff they've dealt with as a clan. They have more books written about them than any clan. And they're a pivotal part of the overarching mythology of Vampire the Masquerade. They play a huge part of it. Enough so you have to wonder, where did these guys come from and why did they exist? Because a little bit of conspiracy theory is going, that's on purpose, and I want to know why. And so they're just a super intriguing clan. I know a lot of people are like, Tremere, they're untrustworthy and they're cheesy and until you've gotten in the dirt of playing this clan. I mean,
I will admit, yes, that is exactly the way I thought of them as well, because my second character was Assamite. So here I am thinking, oh, I've got to hate these guys. Okay. So I bought into all the propaganda about the Tremere. I was like, for the longest time, like you said, until I moved to Los Angeles, that I had that attitude towards them. And they have become my favorite clan as well, simply because of yes, they are more organized. They have a lot of rules, but as you're going to learn with this series of podcasts we're going to be doing with the Tremere, they're definitely, it depends on how you play it. It depends on how your storyteller wants to run it.
mm-hmm.
But I find the Tremere to be one of the most, they are the Swiss Army vampire.
They are.
They are. You can do anything with a Tremere. Like you can have that gothic punk Tremere. You can have the mopey goth girl in the corner who likes to paint. You can have that powerful businessman that likes to make the deal, all within the auspice of this one clan that is a pillar of the Camarilla. And it's just, it's like, in my opinion, it's everything you want and nothing you don't. Unless you are like a hardcore Nos or Gangrel Bruja. You just really want to go that route. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, no, I think the phrase I hear about the Tremere the most often is that they are a sect within a sect. You can actually have a game that is just all Tremere and be happy. And I've played in many little tabletop chronicles that all it was a coterie of Tremere going and having adventures and getting into trouble. And it's amazing. It's a ton of fun. But they also do fit in nicely into our regular court game. And because of their history and because of their background and because of the stigma that is attached to them by all the other clans, it almost adds to the fun of playing a Tremere, because you have nothing to lose when nobody trusts you. So
exactly,
you might as well just go big baller.
And with that, without further ado, let's begin at the beginning. So the Tremere, like we've said, they're a strange clan, dark, mysterious. Everybody thinks they've got this edge of danger to them. Most people, when people say Tremere, things come to mind: traitor, usurper, occult, warlock. I think warlock is their actual given nickname. They are mysterious on purpose, but I think if you get to know them, you get to know the real them. Just always remember, sometimes that clan's going to win out over any friendship, any coterie, because of their stricture. They're also very strict. And that is another thing that people think about when they say Tremere. Oh, rigid discipline. but it kind of comes with their history. It's inborn. It's the most inborn of cultures. Like Jen said, a sect within a sect. They have their own rules for a reason. They are like this for a reason.
Yeah. The Tremere are a clan of mages who are vampires. And because they are a clan of mages, they have a certain inborn, built-in, baked into their DNA sort of structure and focus that most every other clan lacks. The Venture are the only clan who even come close. And a lot of this is born out of the fact that they have roots amongst mages. So their whole setup it makes sense if you know anything about mages. They're ambitious. This is a clan of the entire clan is an ambitious clan. The clan itself moves not just as individuals, it moves as a unit, and the unit is ambitious. What they're ambitious for at any one point in time, well, that can vary from city to city, but their ambition has taken this group of of mages who somehow made themselves into vampires from being these upstarts just 1,000 years ago, which is a blink of an eye in vampiric terms. 1,000 years ago, they didn't exist. 1,000 years later, they're a pillar clan of the Camarilla. That's a huge leap in 1,000 years. So obviously, for the Kindred, who they talk not in years, they talk in centuries and millennia, and have histories going all the way back to the dawn of humankind. Having a group like this just show up and say, "We're here, bitches," you're not. Who are you? Where did you come from? Who are you, and who are your people? What are you doing here? The Tremere are just odd. They are odd, and they are kind of scary to most other vampires because they shouldn't exist.
Right. Not many people know, when I say people, not many among the Kindred actually know their real history. Some people, in game, sure, you've got some metagaming and that, etc. And unless you have actual Tremere lore, you're not going to understand their deep-seated history. And now, to understand this history of the Tremere, we have to sort of cross game lines. I know we're a Vampire the Masquerade World of Darkness podcast, but there's also this group that we referenced before called Mages. They're from the game line Mage the Ascension. There's other great podcasts just based on that. Fantastic stuff. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Go listen to it.
Go listen to it. Yes, please. Spread the love. That the idea that they were mages first, they were mortal will workers that sort of inhabited this crazy world, and is just from that starting point is kind of like, okay. So, you conjure up ideas of Merlin and, Morgan Le Fay, actual magic. And now for everyone who doesn't know, a mage is a human will worker. They are someone with the unique ability to actually bend and shape reality to their will. They can do seemingly improbable, sometimes impossible things that seem to just come out of their imagination.
For any of you who have played Mage, you understand the concept. But for those of you who do not or have not, essentially what a mage can do is they have certain gifts that allow them to manipulate reality to do whatever they want. So if I am sitting in Monrovia and I want to go see John over in Los Angeles, all I can do is I can cast a spell and use a little correspondence, and bam, I'm there. I can just maybe walk through my bedroom door and suddenly I'm at John's place. That should not happen. But as a mage, I can make it happen because I want to. It's almost like a force of will. I have the ability to make reality do whatever I want. Now, there is a lot of limitations and stuff to that, and that's all for a mage podcast. That is not for a vampire podcast. But back in ye olden days, when reality was not so fixed and static, mages were pretty commonplace in the world. There were They were all over the place, especially in Europe. You know, you would have everyone from your like local village, medicinal person, the old lady who lives on the edge of the woods who makes the brews and delivers the babies, to the people living in the castle who studied alchemy and the high arts. You had this whole gamut of people who could do magic. And then that started to change because society changed. As society changed, collective human understanding and awareness and perception all said, but we all collectively agree that only these things happen in certain ways. And if they don't happen this way, then somehow that's an aberration. And the minute we start putting limits on perception and what can happen, that starts limiting mages. And when mages started getting limited, they started finding out that it was more difficult to do magic. And worse, the very essence of reality that they used to help them do their magics, basically the stuff that powered their magics, was fleeing the world because the world was becoming more rigid. The magic places were starting to go away. And reality was saying, collective reality was saying, it's funny, you shouldn't be able to do that. And because that limited their ability to do their magics, this became a big focal point, a big divide for the mages. And this is where Clan Tremere comes in, because this is exactly why they take the next steps that they do that lead them down the path to vampirism and the Camarilla.
The mages, as a collective group, much like vampires, have their own cultures, societies, like clans, to put it in our context. And one of those clans or groups was called the Order of Hermes. Now, these guys were, from my understanding, they are the archetypical wizard throwing the fireball, flying around, and
magic wands.
They're the guys on the tower calling down the lightning. I mean, these guys were just badass. And they had this level of study that they wanted all of their members to do. Like, it was very strict, and they strove for perfection. They tested their theories, their magical discoveries. They were professionally taught. I mean, these guys had personal insight into what they were doing, and they thought they were the best. Of course, when you have that level of, oh, look at those mages over there delivering that baby, I'm going to go over here and raise this mountain. I mean, that gives you a certain level of hubris that, is kind of unmatched. But because of that, I think it also gave them a level of, I don't want to say paranoia, but they were led, this is also where they get their name, they were led by the Archmage Tremere. So Tremere was a person. And he was like...
backtrack a little bit, because we're talking broadly Order of Hermes. Tremere did not lead the Order of Hermes.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so within the Order of Hermes, there were these things called houses. So again, you're getting this idea of what we were saying before about Clan Tremere having a sect within a sect. Order of Hermes had houses within their group. And one of these houses was House Tremere.
Yes. So I liken the Order of Hermes to a university, because I work at a university. So it makes sense to me. At a university, you have the main university. We'll say UCLA, because reasons. And, at UCLA, you have different schools. You have the College of Letters and the Arts, and you have the College of Engineering, and you have, the Anderson School of Business, and you have these different groups within the university, and they each have their focus. And then sometimes it's even further subdivided. You have the Department of History and the Department of Modern Languages, and so there's this subdivisions that go on within the larger umbrella of the university. So the Order of Hermes is a tradition, a way of doing magic. And within the tradition of the Order of Hermes, you have House Tremere, which was one of several houses within the Order of Hermes who all we agree that this is the type of magic we want to do, and this is the way we want to pursue it. But our focuses might be slightly different, even though we're all part of the same academic body. That's my analogy.
That's brilliant analogy. Go Bruins. No, I'm just kidding. Anybody out there, if I'm offended, man, forget it.
I have no problem offending the Trojans out there. Sorry.
Well, you actually went there, so. Not that I'm a big USC person, but I digress. So this House Tremere, as I said, was formed around the Archmage Tremere himself. So it was named after him. He was the head honcho. I mean, if Faith could move a mountain, this guy could move a whole mountain range. He was that powerful. And because of their way of training, their philosophy, actually, they believed that the world is an inherently dangerous place. And, I mean, with no wonder, you still had the equivalent of world wars, civil wars, all this kind of anything that could stop you from studying your magic. It's out there. And so they developed a way to train and prepare for any eventuality. They thought, you know what, we're going to make ourselves so prepped, and they were the original preppers.
They were absolutely the original preppers.
Absolutely. So if you think about them in that context, you kind of understand they had a sense of urgency, which is, again, something that those vampires that were born since times of yore do not possess. But I always feel that the Tremere, especially at this time, House Tremere, they were writing like they were running out of time.
Ha ha ha.
Ha ha.
Thank you for that, Alexander. Yeah, this is a group that's heavily militarized. I like the prepper analogy. I think it's appropriate. Because it's not that they believe the fix is in, they know it. And they're waiting for the eventuality. It may not come today, it may not come tomorrow, but it's going to happen. And when it does, we're ready for it. So that makes them very militant. They're very militant both to their leader, Tremere. It means that they keep a sort of discipline within House Tremere about not the study of magic, but also being prepared for just about anything that could happen to them. Either you're not paranoid if they really are out to get you, but it also makes them very clannish. They're extremely clannish.
Yeah, they have a hierarchy that is in an organization that is unparalleled, especially at this time. So this is the idea of, we're going to get into this later, but hierarchy, think ranks, or, like in a military, you've got the, corporal, captain, sergeant, all the different ranks in a military. So keep that in mind too, because that's kind of how they ran things.
It's with a military precision, but the clannishness isn't just about this military structure. It's the fact that as a group, they think collectively of the house first. It is house first, house second, house third, and maybe the Order of Hermes a distant fourth. It is, everything about them is all about House Tremere, and everything they do is for House Tremere. And you do not do anything to endanger House Tremere. It's almost like, I don't know, you'll see some very elite military units who sometimes have this perspective. Certainly, you see it in any other really tightly knit club or like a sorority or fraternity or feudal houses. Feudal houses had this all the time. You always worked for the glory of your feudal house. You did not work against your feudal house. And so this is exactly the mentality of House Tremere that they carry with them all the time. And yes, that was at odds with some of the other houses in the Order of Hermes. And yes, some of them thought they were dangerous because of it. Not all of them. There were some other houses who were just as bad as the Tremere were. House Tytalan, by any chance. House Tytalus was just as bad as the Tremere, only they didn't go the extra step the Tremere did. So
their level of preparedness with that sense of paranoia, they believed, and like Jen was saying, cooperation was key. It was the idea that they were stronger together and they could face any sort of threat together. And it was, any group that you get with an us versus them mentality can be considered a threat. And so everybody kind of watches them with a weary eye, or like, what are they plotting over there? Because, suddenly they've got all this firepower under one roof, and that doesn't bode well. And of course, it didn't, because the Tremere ambition was just huge, and they thought, hey, we're doing so well over here, I think the whole order needs to be this way.
Yeah, there is a noted of at least one failed attempt by House Tremere to take over the entire order. And because of that, they were actually key in at least the fall of one house. So obviously their ambition just was raw and naked, and everyone, it was out there. They were like, yep, we don't care. Because of this raw ambition, because of this hyper-focused nature, because of this militaristic attitude, they, in a short amount of time, they became the most powerful house in the Order of Hermes, or at least one of the most powerful houses. I wouldn't necessarily say they were the most powerful house, but one of the most powerful ones. And yeah, that scared everybody else. They're like, their Tremere are ambitious and they need to be put into check.
But and they were taking down a few pegs, and they thought, well, fine, we're gonna go lick our wounds, but we're the best. And so they go back in their little conclave, their little castle, their keep. They concentrate all this power. And Jen mentioned it before. Reality starts paying attention to that. They're like, wait a minute. You guys got the equivalent of a freaking magic nuke in there. We got to do something about that. And so reality starts to harden, and they find that their magic isn't as potent as it once was. Or maybe it's more difficult to do the same things they could do with ease before. And this really sets Tremere on edge. He notices, and he's like, oh, crap. We've got to do something about this. I want to make sure that we can live forever because, come on, you're a mage. You got all this magic floating around. They had people using magic to help extend their lives. I mean, they weren't the only ones doing it. But because of that prepper attitude, they're like, we have to find a solution.
Yeah, I mean, because they were using magics to extend their lives beyond their natural, normal, mortal lifespans, the moment magic starts failing and you realize you're not going to be able to keep this up for much longer, you panic. You're like, shit, we got to find some way to fix this or we're all in a lot of trouble. Especially for Tremere, because Tremere, he was pretty old by this time. Tremere's like, that will mean I die, and that could mean the house falls apart, and I can't have that. I mean, this is my legacy, I mean, as ambitious as the entire house is, Tremere is the most ambitious of all of them. So yeah, nope, we gotta figure out how we're gonna keep alive, and we're gonna stay alive and keep this going. And like John said, by far, Tremere were not the only mages having this problem. Definitely, there were a lot of other mages who used magic to extend their lives, who were running into the same problem, and they were all trying to figure out, how can we get around the problem of consensus? How can we do a workaround? And the Tremere, being hermetic mages, like all hermetic mages, did what they did best. They said, let's go do some research, hit the libraries, and we're going to figure this out.
That's right. Go to the library, Hermione.
That's my solution for all things in life.
So Tremere, being the friendly guy that he is, he decided to take 7 of his best disciples, and this is what's going to be forming the inner council coming up. And he says, all right, guys, here's the problem. And let's do the research, hit the books, and we'll meet back here. Tell me your ideas. And there was this one guy, Goratrix. He's like,
Oh,
Goratrix. He says, hey, boss, I got a solution. I've been studying these vampires on the next mountain over, and yeah, permission to experiment, maybe? What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? I mean, they're just like these weird, hoary, strange vampires in Eastern Europe. What could possibly go wrong there?
So, of course, Tremere's like, yeah, do that. That's a good idea. And so Goratrix goes over.
Tell us how that works out for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine. Yeah. If you don't make it back, I'll just fill your seat. So Goratrix says, okay, great, carte blanche. And he runs off, grabs himself a couple of Shamazay, because that's always a good idea.
Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely bloody brilliant. Wait until we get to them sometime when we're doing Sapat. You'll see how brilliant that plan was.
Oh, yeah. And, and he does his little hermeticness and his little alchemies. And he says, hey, he comes up with this potion. And he's like, hey, I got a potion. I got a life-extending potion. It's the elixir of life, boss. Yeah. And so he presents
I seem to remember Nicholas Flamel saying the same exact thing.
Oh,
back
yeah.
in the day. Oh, wait.
And even that wasn't forever. So he gives Tremere the potion, and he's like, here, this is the solution to all our problems. And wouldn't you know it, it actually, instead of making them immortal, it made him immortal, but it also turned him into a vampire. No. So here they are. I think it was just the council, right? Tremere and the council.
Yeah, it was just Tremere and his 7 apprentices.
And his 7 apprentices that drank it to test it, because they got to make sure it works. Suddenly we're there vampires. Suddenly they're like, oh, crap. Now we've got all the problems that vampires have, but we have no idea what we're doing.
Even worse.
Oh, what could be worse, Jen?
As mages are connected to the spiritual entity that helps them with their magic. It's known as an avatar. And your avatar, with only those mortals who've been awakened and connected to their avatar, have the ability to use their will to do magic. What happens with Tremere and his 7 apprentices is the minute they drink Goratrix's Shimase concoction, they're cut off from their avatars.
No.
That means they cannot do magic anymore. They have the one thing that defined them, the one thing that made them who they were, the one thing they were so desperate to preserve, they were willing to go with this cockamamie scheme, and they lost it because Goratrix is like, I think this sounds like a good idea.
Oh, so yeah. So now their main claim to fame, their mage-like power is cut off from them. And yeah, I'm sure it came as a huge blow, but I mean, these are the Tremere we're talking about.
Well, I will say this. I mean, if you're a group who are paranoid and think they're all out to get you, and your main weapon is now lost to you, like, what the hell are you going to do?
Right, but they were smart because, again,
that they are.
They didn't give it to the whole house. Only they took it. So they still have, all their apprentices are still mages. So they say, okay, look, we're not going to take this lying down. We're going to lock ourselves in this room. We're going to figure some shit out. And we're going to make this work for us to understand what's going on. And so they do what they do best, and they did more research.
More research!
But hiding out can only get you so far because, well, remember how Jen said the Shamaze, yeah, that's a good idea? Well, they kind of noticed they had some clanmates missing.
The Tremere were hiding out in this castle stronghold they have called Chaos. It's in Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe is also the home of Clan Shimase. And they are very territorial. They're a very territorial clan who do not like people coming in and messing up with their stuff.
Oh, no.
You don't go and kick the grass. You don't let your dog pee on the lawn. You don't go and mess with their stuff, because if you do, then they're going to come at you with giant slotches and other horrendous flesh melded monsters and come knock on your door and be like, what's up, motherfucker? This is the mindset of this clan, and that's exactly what started happening.
Oh yeah, to say that the Shamaze, I mean, it's like the Tremere may have been warlocks, the Shamaze were warlords. And so they were picking on the wrong people. I guess they just had the bad fortune of being the nearest vampires.
Yes.
So the Shamaze, they start laying siege. How'd you pronounce it? Chaos?
Chaos. Yeah.
Chaos.
Yeah.
And so
they
Tremere,
start sieging it.
They're sitting there, the apprentices are trying to hold them off. They're like, oh crap, we got these vampires at the gates. Fireball, fireball, fireball.
It's their worst nightmare. It is the Tremere's worst nightmare.
Because they were not prepared for this kind of onslaught, especially at this one little stronghold. But guess what? Goratrix to the rescue. Again.
Basically, you should start figuring out that if Goratrix thinks this is a good idea, probably not a great idea. But whatever.
But whatever. You got the vampires at the gates, and Tremere's like, yes, whatever. We'll do it. If it'll help, we'll do it. And so he comes up with this crazy idea, probably because of his studying with the Shamaze, to create gargoyles. Now, gargoyles are kind of what you think. I mean, they come out all gray-skinned and everything, and they are the protectors, the servitors of the Tremere, or at least they will be, but right now they're just still kind of protectors of Chaoris. Think sort of how in Underworld, how they treated the Lycans.
Well, worse than that. So gargoyles, yeah, sure. They're like, they're like Disney animated series gargoyles. But not nearly as smart. Okay, you really have to stop and think about what a gargoyle is. So Goretrix's creation of gargoyles, it's not just like, here's a stone statue and I make it come to life. Oh no. What Goretrix did was he created a magical method, a ritual that allowed for a weird, unholy amalgamation of vampires. And basically, it's like I took a gangrel and I took like a Nosferatu and I threw them in a pot and ba-bam! We have a gargoyle. Hey, and this one was we're going to throw Shimase and a gangrel in the pot. And look, we got another gargoyle. You're basically cutting up and mutilating vampires and putting them back together in weird configurations to make gargoyles. It's really, really gross.
But
that's what a gargoyle is.
I know, but they were effective.
They were effective. They were very effective.
They were very effective, and they caught the Shamaze by surprise because they only had their flesh crafted abominations to sort of be living battering rams, and now suddenly the Tremere have these hybrid, tough as hell gangrel nos Shamaze things that were probably a little more. Well, they were bigger than human size, but they were faster, stronger, tougher than what they could keep throwing at them. And right, Jen, they were vampires themselves.
Yeah, they're vampires.
So they had the innate toughness and natural abilities of a vampire. And the Shamaze, I don't think their Shlacha are. I mean, you could pretty much do some mass damage to one of them and they'll go down.
Yeah, but they're mean motherfuckers.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying it's like a couple of heavy gargoyles could take one of them on, no problem.
Depends on your Slasha.
Why you got to be that way about gargoyles?
Well, because I've played Shimase. So.
Oh, damn it. Typical. Okay, but anyway, Goretrix's plans works, and they help fend off the horrible fiends that are attacking the Tremere and allow them to survive a few more nights. And so this just buys them time. This buys the Tremere time that they need.
Yes, this buys them time. And so meanwhile, knowing that the house philosophy is to unite and strengthen numbers when they hit a crisis like this, what they did was the 7 disciples of Tremere, who all got turned into accidental vampires, they started to go and secretly and surreptitiously embrace the other members of House Tremere. Not all at once. They would take like one or two or maybe a group of them and they would embrace them, and then they would make them vampires. Then they may make another group of like 2 to 3 or maybe 5 or 6 into vampires. And so it's a slow attrition of House Tremere making them from being mages to vampires. But a problem started to arise because 2 of Tremere's students, 2 of his apprentices, Etrius and Goretrix, were starting to argue over basically the philosophy of how they wanted to do it. Goretrix being, as you can already tell from Goretrix, from what we've seen of him thus far, Goretrix is all about doing it fast and getting it over with, Let's just do it. Let's just go. Screw thinking about this, or maybe, considering what our options are, or if this is even a good idea. Well, let's just do it. Get it done, get it over with, make it fast, make it clean. Etrius, on the other hand, was like, whoa, hold up. Let's carefully select those who we feel would be the most obedient and least likely to rebel against this, And because obviously this is going to be huge change. You're taking mages and taking their magic away from them. Many of them might not even agree to do this. And if we do it against their will, then they can turn against us. And that is absolutely against the Tremere ethos. So Etrius is like, let's just take the most obedient ones and we'll make this a careful process of conversion. And that way we can ensure that everyone we bring into our little secret society of vampires is on the same page and they're all buying into it. And so the two of them start squabbling over this, as Etrius and Goratrix were wont to do, and it threatened a division pretty early on among the Tremere over, how are we going to bring everybody else into our vampiric fold? And Tremere himself was the one who quickly shut that shit down. He laid down the law and said, look, I got a plan. And so his plan was to gradually convert the house along and bring them all into the fold, but also to build up a hierarchy within this new vampiric order of that they were creating, where that would help keep everyone in line and give them the same discipline that they were used to as mages. This order would eventually become known as the Pyramid, because the way the order is pretty much shaped is you have Tremere at the top, and then you have different layers, hierarchy, and of control within the clan. So there's always somebody above you have to answer to. So very much like the military, where you have your top generals at the very tippy top, and the president is at the absolute top, but underneath them you have your rank and file. And this is the plan that Tremere came up with for how to build his clan of vampires. And make no mistake, it was always for Tremere, his clan of vampires, just like it was his house of mages. In order to facilitate this, he also blood binds the 7 co-conspirators in this crazy plan so that they are bound in obedience to him. And this makes them inherently loyal to Tremere. And this also begins a tradition that would be the bedrock of Clan Tremere itself, and that even into the modern Knights, when a Tremere is created and brought into the clan, they are at least partially bound to the 7 who are bound to Tremere. And by doing this, they're able to create this mystical bond amongst all the Tremere that keep them loyal to the clan, and by extension, loyal to Tremere, and keeps everybody in line and in lockstep in this hierarchy, which in Tremere's mind would keep the clan strong and hale, and they wouldn't have the divisiveness that could lead to their downfall, especially in these early years when it was just crazy and you had all these threats against you and they weren't strong and powerful. For Tremere, in his mind, we need to keep as solid as possible, else they will just chip us away and destroy us.
You know, and obviously it works because it has persisted into the modern Knights. But before you could get there, you had to even figure out where you were going to be as a brand new Cainite. Cainite? Right, Cainite. Even though you're not of Cain, but that's a whole other thing. Kindred. We're going to, as a brand new kindred in this society.
It's a little before the term kindred.
Okay. As a vampire. While they were laying the groundworks for the pyramid, for the clan, Tremere was like, you know what? We're going to keep embracing our house slowly but surely. And I'm going to send out a few people to figure out, you know, let's get a lay of the land of the other vampires, the Cainites and their society. We only know a little bit. We know that the Shamazay don't like us. What else is out there? He wanted an expeditionary force to figure out what else was out there in Cainite society. And so he had a few people infiltrate a few courts, learn the games of their politicking, because they had to find a way to make a sustainable defense against the Shamazay if this was going to keep being a problem.
Yeah, and it soon became clear that one of the main difficulties that Tremere were going to have with all the other vampires out there was that they weren't considered to be a clan.
No, they were actually considered a bloodline of the Shamazay.
Yeah, and in reality, at that time at least, that actually was what they were. They were just a bloodline of Shimase. They were an offshoot. for most vampires, they're like, what the hell is this thing? You know, they had somehow accidentally made themselves into vampires, which was completely unheard of to any other vampire. They were like, how is that even possible? But the Tremere had one thing going for them that made them very intriguing to the other clans. And that was the fact that they had somehow unlocked the key to blood magic.
Yeah, all that research paid off.
Sure did. So blood magic is not unknown among vampires. There are several clans that have a form of blood magic. There have been vampiric sorcerers pretty much from the dawn of vampires. But few of the blood sorcerers were in the so-called high clans of the courts of Europe. Most of them you would find amongst the Shimase, among the Assamites, the followers of Set. These were all clans that were on the outsides of vampiric polite society. They had none in the politer courts of Europe that could do blood magic. And so it was very intriguing to those Ventrue and Toreador that, hey, there are these vampires who can do it. Especially because they feared the vampires on the edges of society who could do sorcery. That they were strange and weird and foreign, and they were on the edges of all polite and good and nice things. So if we can find some people who can do it themselves and maybe get them to work for us, maybe that's to our advantage. The other aspect of this is that while the Shimase and the Setites and the Assamites could all do a form of blood magic, none of them could do the things that the Tremere could do. None of them could do the variety of things or the type of things that the Tremere could do. And the fact that the Tremere were in such a short time have figured out how to do a kind of magic that was as powerful as what they were doing, that was massively effective in convincing the other vampires of the courts of Europe that, hey, Tremere might, they might be weird and strange and usurpers, but they might be useful, weird, strange usurpers. They may help, they may benefit us in the long run.
Right, because remember, when the Tremere were House Tremere of the Order of Hermes, they already had a lot of that genteel training. They already understood how the courts of Europe worked. How the Britain, France, everywhere you think of when you think of Europe, they already knew what that world was. They also understood how strange and unusual the Eastern European vampires could be, or because firsthand especially. But the Setites and the Assamites, they were those Saracens from across the sea. They were the Levantine strangers that we know nothing of their strange ways. And so it sort of, like Jen said, gave the courts of Europe a little bit more of a, oh man, why don't we listen to what the Tremere have to offer? Because if they can come up with a magical means of dealing with them, we could be onto something. We could have a mutual understanding. And it's through that understanding of the mystical arts and their abilities as mages that the Tremere were able to ingratiate themselves. They could flaunt that knowledge that no one else seemed to have in the courts of the vampires of Europe and use that to their advantage.
Just because they ingratiated themselves didn't mean they were respected. I mean, I can have a court alchemist, but that doesn't mean that he's going to sit at the high table and eat with me. I mean, he's still a servant. So that the Tremere were like, we got to remedy that double quick because they may find us useful, but they don't respect us. And we want them to respect us. And so Tremere thinks he discovered a way to do that.
Right. Because what do the other clans have that the Clan Tremere don't?
They have an antediluvian.
Right. A founder.
They had a clan founder who was of the third generation, who was a grandchild of Cain, who was this powerful, all-knowing, terrifying old vampire that nobody had seen in, who knows how long, but we know they existed. They existed. And for clans like the Ventrue in particular, who were so punctilious about bloodlines, Ventrue, you have to know your entire bloodline going all the way back to like Mithras or some other fourth generation vampire. The Toreador, who could claim to have known arts and beauty and culture all the way back to the first city of Cain. These clans had ancient roots that they used to kind of bolster their authority, and the Tremere had none of that. So Tremere's like, well, if they feel like we need to have a third generation vampire as our progenitor, well, let's go fix that.
And so what did he do? What do Tremeres do best? They hit the books again.
Hit the books.
And Tremere himself at this point, he was like, you know what, guys, I got this. You just back me up. And he went around and he talked to all the different historians of the other clans. He did his due diligence. He listened to the stories. He found the histories of all the other vampires. One thing he discovered, other than the idea of diablerie and everything else that went along with it, he thought that was going to be his key to becoming the founder. And how do you do that? Well, you got to go find an antediluvian.
And then you have to diablerize them.
And he's like, oh, well, how hard can that be? He's like, hey, Gangrel, tell me about your he just can rip your head off from a distance. I won't go over there. Okay, what about, he just went down the line and he's like, okay, everybody kicks ass except, wait, who's this Salot guy?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Salot is the antediluvian for a very small and little known clan called the Salubri. And we haven't talked about them yet because, like I said, they're very small and little known. And Salot was supposed to be, according to all the legends, this healer, this mystic, this very gentle soul who, was beloved of Cain, and he just sounded like an all-around just nice guy. The kind of guy that if you're looking for an antediluvian who you might be able to munch on, Salot might be your first choice.
Yeah, I mean, how hard can it be? The guy's he's a hippie. What kind of fight is he going to put up?
Make peace, not war, baby.
That's right. And also, compared to all the other antediluvians, he was the most harmless, I'm air quoting, most harmless of them. So he's like, you know what? That's the target. That's the guy. Now all I got to do is find him.
Yeah, and that's easier said than done because by this point, even 1,000 years ago, most of the clan founders had disappeared like ages before. No one knew where any of them were. You might hear rumors of Hakim or Malkov, but no one knew where any of their clan founders were. And so you had to do some digging and do some research. And apparently Salot decided Turkey sounded like a great place to go hang out.
Was that it? That he just went like, hey, he's in Turkey. Let's go get him?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay. So Tremere's like, hey, guys, I found him. Let's go truck over to Turkey. A couple of you guys stay here, watch over the apprentices, keep the home fires burning, and we'll be back. And so they find him. And like at this crypt, it's still, there's probably stories upon stories of how this actually occurred. But Tremere went in, saw him lying there in repose and said, hey, so this is Salot? All right. And he diablerized him. Simple as that.
Sucked him
not
dry.
Necessarily.
Sucked him dry, clear down to his soul. But as you said, John, not necessarily as simple as that.
Because as soon as he'd done it, bam, Tremere drops into torpor. And whoever went with him were like, whoa, okay, let's get the boss and get back to the base, because we didn't expect that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they expected, frankly, but
right.
They did not expect that Tremere would just go bam and fall into a deep, deep torpor state. Then they're like, oh crap, now what do we do? So they're taking Tremere back to Chaos and then trying to figure out, how do you continue Tremere's plan when he's in an Odin sleep, essentially? And how do you keep the clan together, and how do you keep this all going without having Tremere alive and well, he's alive, but having Tremere awake and calling the shots. And so basically the 7 apprentices who were in on the scheme with him decide that they are going to create a inner council, and that this group would be the leaders of the clan. Even though Tremere is the actual leader in name, they're the ones who are doing the day-to-day, night-to-night operations for the clan. So they become the new leaders of the clan, even though technically in their minds they still all answer to Tremere.
Well, as you might expect, the death of a founder, an antediluvian, doesn't go unnoticed.
No.
So you've got the poor Tremere. Oh, poor them. First off, they piss off the Shamaze by, having their people stolen and making some potion of immortality. Now you've gone into the courts of Europe. You're like, hey, we're good guys. Oh, we need a founder. We'll be right back. Oh, we're back. Wait, what? What do you mean we're murderers and usurpers? What? No. Salat, he was, guys, help me out here. The courts do not take kindly to the death of a founder.
No.
And so, again, the Tremere are up against a wall. They're like, oh, crap. We really stepped in at this time. Thanks, boss.
It seems like the Tremere are the classic case of, in order to fix this one problem, I create 5 other problems. And
yeah.
And wait, I fixed those problems. Now I've created 10 other problems. This is the entire Tremere MO, especially in these early years.
Well, and this is one of the reasons why they're my favorite, because I know for a fact in my personal life, my philosophy is not, I better get a ladder because I'm digging a hole. No. If I'm digging a hole, I'm just going to keep on digging because I've got to come out the other side sometime.
That's a very Tremere philosophy.
That's a very Tremere philosophy.
It really is.
That's right. Just keep going because you come out the other side at some point.
Well, to add insult to injury, not only are all the courts of the vampires like, what did you do? Now the Order of Hermes has caught on to what's been happening because now they're well aware and the jig is up. So they decide to formally cast the Tremere out of the Order of Hermes. And so anyone who was still a true mage and a Tremere was kind of caught in the crossfires because now you have to choose. Do I abandon my house and go and stay with the Order and repudiate the Tremere, or do I go and join a bunch of vampires doing crazy shit over there? In casting the Tremere out of the Order of Hermes, the Order began to raise armies to now go and attack the Tremere and because they declared them anathema and they must be destroyed. So this now just puts a little extra fire under the boiling pot that the Tremere seem to have found themselves in at this point. And so they've figured out we're going to have to work fast to ensure that we will be protected. So thanks to the efforts of Mirlinda, who was one of the 7, she began basically kind of massaging the vampiric courts of Europe. She began playing a little politics. And so she was beginning to try and entrench the Tremere in each of these courts to make them valuable, to make them, especially because of their magical expertise. Once she could sell a powerful prince on the idea of you can have an entire clan of blood mages here who can just do whatever you want, whenever you want, that makes them valuable to other princes. And so the princes then are like, well, if I'm going to throw this investment into these guys, sure, they have a shady past, but I can get over their shady past because they can shoot fireballs at my enemies. I'm willing to give them protection. And once Mirlinda starts doing that, this gives them a measure of protection, at least against the worst of the derision from the other vampires. Now, as for the mages, that's a whole other problem, but that at least tempers one of the fires that they have going on. That and it doesn't put it out completely, as you can see, and because they will always forever have this reputation, but it at least stems it enough that they can get on their own 2 feet with the vampires without having to like fight a war on 2 fronts. But they still have the stigma because, hey, dude, you just killed Sala. You just killed this clan founder. That's a crime. That's horrific. What were you doing? So they have to come up with a justification like, oh, of course we killed Sala because you know what? You all think he was a nice guy, but actually he was pretty bad. He was really bad. You guys didn't know it, but he was bad. He was infernal.
Yeah, didn't you guys get the copy of Ye Old TMZ?
Ye Old TMZ says Salot be hooking it up with the demons, yo.
Soul stealing and all that shit.
I mean, did you ever look in his forehead? There was an eye there. Yeah.
Third eye, man.
A third eye. A third eye right in the middle of his forehead. That's not right. That's obviously.
That's got to be demonic.
That's obviously
Clearly.
the mark of a devil.
That's right.
I mean, and then of course, obviously, if he was infernal, then all of his children have got to be infernal too, right? We can all agree on that, right? So, I mean, they seem so gentle. I know they seem so gentle and nice. They're just gentle, nice healers, but that's what they want you to think. That's how they corrupt your souls. Yeah.
So yeah, that's exactly what it is. But lo and behold, it started to work its way into society, but since it was really fresh at that time, not a lot of people bought it. So even though no one liked the Tremere, they definitely tolerated them. They gave them refuge from the Order of Hermes. They started to actually succeed. This is kind of like where the clan starts to see the light, because they're starting to kind of ingratiate themselves into these other cities, into these other towns, these courts, and they're finding the shelter that they've needed all along, and things start to kind of look up.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that the other groups didn't buy it. They absolutely, I would say this, they did not buy it about the Salubri.
They didn't. Well, I mean, yeah, any way to get one up on somebody.
What the Tremere actually started doing was saying, those Salubri, can't trust him because Salat, he was infernal. That's why we had to kill him. I mean, we're mages. We know a thing or two about this mystic shit. And people are like, that sounds shady to me, but you know what? I don't know much about mystic shit. So, okay. And it wasn't exactly like the Salubri were super beloved. At least not. I would say it's less that they weren't beloved. It was much more they weren't useful. So if you have a Tremere who can do blood magic, and that's valuable to you compared to a Salubri who is peace loving and like saying prayers and, healing people, which is much more valuable to you? Well, obviously it's going to be the Tremere who can boil people alive with their own blood. That is going to be much more valuable to you than the Salubri. So when the Tremere was like, well, you know what? I think that we should just maybe hunt down the Salubri and remove them because we all know they're demon tainted, right? We can all agree they're demon tainted. Everyone's like, meh, okay. They were willing to go along with the Tremere party line. I wouldn't say it was necessarily because they believed it, but it was much more of, well, you know what? You're more valuable to me than they are. So we'll go along with it. However you feel you need to justify it. Okay, whatever. Sure. They're demonic. We all know they steal souls with that third eye. And this is where the Salubri, the rumors, the taints on the Salubri reputation comes from. It's from Clan Tremere covering up the tracks of their crime. They justified the crime they did by saying, it was because they were totally demonic. And we'll find out someday when we actually get to Salubri. It's a much more complicated story than that.
Always is.
Always is. Yeah, the Tremere began to aggressively hunt down the Salubri and kill them. And to the point that they are absolutely one of the rarest clans that you will find in modern nights. You'll find them more in the Sabbat of all places than you will anywhere. But they hunted them down like dogs.
As far as the war with the Order of Hermes goes, the short of it is that the Order of Hermes, the human mages, didn't quite expect the Tremere to be so adept and capable at defending themselves as they are or were. And so that just sort of, they've reached some stalemates here and there. It's a war that is sort of still going. They've battled it ever since. But obviously, Clan Tremere they're still here, they've survived, and they're thriving.
It's the Masasa War, which is what the mages and the Tremere call it. It's kind of like the Cold War, where every so often you have hot spots, but for the most part, it's just ongoing, long running, has never ended for 1,000 years. They do not like each other. They do not like each other. If a hermetic mage comes across a Tremere, there's going to be some guns drawn. There's going to be punches thrown. There's going to be spells flying through the air because they do not. The hermetic mages see them as traitors. The Tremere just don't care. They're like, well, yeah, we pretty much just, screwed you, but that's what it takes to survive in this world. Them's the breaks. That's the Tremere mindset. So they do not get along. And that's always fun, was because the Tremere are like, well, we have to keep the vampires happy, because if we don't, then the mages are going to come kill us. So, that's always fun.
And so by the time the Renaissance rolled around, and just think about that, though, we're now at the Renaissance. All that other stuff we just talked about was prior to this. So you got to kind of keep in mind that how quickly things moved for the clan.
Yeah, I think that the whole Tremere conversion bit happens circa around 1000. So when you think 1066, that's the year William the Conqueror invades England. That's like the progenitor of all the modern kings and queens of England. That's how long ago the Tremere became vampires. And so between then and the Renaissance, it's only 3 or 4 centuries. That's a blink for a vampire. All the story we just told you only happened within 3 or 4 centuries.
And that is a short amount of time to get a lot of work done. But again, that's kind of what the Tremere do.
Yeah.
And so by this time, they are now recognized as a full-on clan. Everybody's kind of buying the story about Salat, and they're like, yeah, okay, the Salubri, yeah, they're just an old vampire's tale. But the Tremere, being who they are, there's still really no time to rest. They're not, they think, oh, phew, we're a clan now, we've got inroads in here, the Salubri thing's dying down, but no, there's all kinds of problems. And this one, the Inquisition rears its ugly head, and here you are, a vampire magic user. Oh, crap.
Yeah, so the Inquisition, the Tremere are pretty much everything the Inquisition doesn't like. And they hit many of their key chantries, and they begin burning them down. And for the Tremere, that's a loss of manpower, and worse, it's a loss of knowledge. Because what do the Tremere do when the shit gets real? They hit the books. Mortal hunters really began to focus on the Tremere because they're kind of an obvious target. Not only are they vampires, they're magic vampires. So, ding, ding, ding. Hey, go for those guys.
Any inquisitor that's trying to hunt down the devil and witchcraft, all they have to do is follow the knowledge. Like Jen said, all those books and all the occult stuff, don't think they didn't keep tabs on it. So if they can follow, go to ye olde used bookstore and they find Nicholas Flamel's, treatise on the Philosopher's Stone, and they're like, hey, why is that really pale guy reading that scroll? I'm going to follow him. So yeah, obvious target.
Yeah. So Goratrix, who, as we have seen, is all the best plans come from Goratrix. all the best ones.
Oh, he's a mastermind, that guy.
Clearly it's worked so well so far. Goratrix decides, I'm going to use my influence in the Inquisition and try to turn the Inquisition against my enemies. Because that sounds like a plan. Rather than have them focus on me, I'll just turn them against those guys. So his plan, of course, as is the pattern with many of Goratrix's plans, his plan fails spectacularly. And when it got revealed, it all came out. And Tremere woke up. Now, mind you, Tremere has been asleep since he diablerized Salat. It had to be a massive fuck up for him to wake up and go, Goratrix, we gotta talk. It was bad. And he called Goratrix to him. And he strips Goratrix of all of his authority. Much to the delight of Etrius, who was like, Neener, you had it coming to you. Ha ha ha. So Goratrix now is stripped of everything. And so he flees into Eastern Europe. And of course, now he's bitter and angry about all of it. And so he gathers around him his own followers, people who were, for one reason or the other, they're Tremere, who resented a lot of the impositions of being a Tremere. Either they didn't like the hierarchy, or maybe they didn't want to ever be embraced but got forced into it, or maybe the vampire life wasn't what they thought it was, or hey, I miss being a true mage, what have you. They did not want to fit into the hierarchy of Clan Tremere. They wanted out. So they go with Gortrix and they run away into the east, and they don't really resurface in polite vampiric society till much later, when you find them in the ranks of the Sabbat.
Then who does that leave to be in charge?
Etrius, because he got to go neener.
That's right, because he's like, Gortrix, buddy, thank you very much. Thanks for playing. Bye-bye. And he says, don't worry, Tremere, I got your back. And they pack up how does the Beverly Hillbillies go? They packed up the truck and they moved to Vienna.
Yep. So for centuries, they've been in Caeris, which is this huge mountainous castle fortress in Eastern Europe. But obviously, Gortrix has the number of that place, and he can't be trusted anymore. And the Shimase just love attacking it, and the Order of Hermes knows where it's at. And so instead, Etrius is like, how about we just leave, and we'll build a beautiful new chantry in this up-and-coming city called Vienna. And we can control Vienna all we want because it's up and coming. And we can just settle down, set down stakes there, begin again. And this is where the main chantry of Clan Tremere would be established. And this becomes the center of Tremere power and knowledge going forward through the centuries.
Yeah, their clan, they rise to prominence. They're finally getting that recognition they deserve. And then a certain event comes up where they really, truly cement their usefulness, their power among the other vampires. It's called the Convention of Thorns.
Yeah, so we've discussed the Convention of Thorns previously. This was a big event in the formation of the Camarilla, basically kind of bringing to an end a lot of the conflict with the Anarchs, who didn't much love the fact that the powerful elders who controlled most of vampiric society were using them as bait to the Inquisition. Eventually, they were able to bring all sides to the table at Thorns, which was this place in England. And at this convention, while they're talking about it, one of the sore subjects that got brought up was Clan Assamite. Now, Clan Assamite have a caste, as we discussed in our Assamite episodes. Go back and take a listen. They have a caste known as the Warriors. And as far as European vampires knew, that was what an Assamite was. They didn't really know about the other two castes. And the Warriors have been using the chaos of the Inquisition and the Anarch revolts to go willy-nilly. And they were taking out assassination contracts on vampires and drinking vampiric blood and just all sorts of craziness. And this scared the shit out of most every elder, because these Assamites are coming to get us. They're coming to get us. These foreigners, they're coming to get us. And they saw them as a huge threat. And the Assamites were not going to back down. They were not going to give in. They were not going to surrender. They were not going to sign on the dotted line of the Convention of Thorns. So somehow they had to bring the entire group to heel. And so the powerful princes of the Camarilla went to Clan Tremere and said, look, here's the Assamites. We know they're a threat. How do we take care of the threat? How can we neutralize them? And the Tremere are like, wait a second, I think we have an idea. So the Tremere pool their knowledge and they come up with a ritual. And meanwhile, Clan Nosferatu, who are the sneaky spies of the Camarilla, were able to do a little reconnaissance, all Star Wars style, like very like Rogue One. You know, you send that group in to go find out the plans to the Death Star. That's exactly what the Nosferatu did. They found the plans to Alamut, which is the mountain that the mountain fortress the Assamites call home.
The hidden fortress.
It is a hidden fortress. And the Nosferatu found it and they snuck in and they figured out a way to get in there so that they could get the Tremere in to cast this ritual. And what this ritual did was it meant that it made it that Assamites could no longer drink vampiric blood. it would become acidic and poisonous to them, which seriously debilitated them, especially because especially what the warriors were doing, but even their blood mages, Assamite blood mages, required huge amounts of blood to be able to do some of the things that they were doing. And so now they're crippled. The one thing they needed to be able to do the things they were good at, they're without, because to ingest vampiric blood would kill them. And that basically brought the entire clan to heel, and Clan Tremere was the one who did it. And that secret didn't stay very secret very long. So Clan Assamite was like, we will hate you forever. You are our enemies. There will be a perpetual enmity between your blood and our blood. And the Tremere are like, yeah, we're used to that. You're not the only ones who said that. Get in line. So this would become a huge boon for the Tremere in terms of the Camarilla, because the minute they did that, the Camarilla is like, wow, the fact that you were able to bring an entire clan to heel with just a ritual? What the what? Holy crap. Who are these Tremere? All right, this catapults them from being these like weirdo low clan who like diabolarize clan founders. It catapults them from that to being a high clan and a big time player in the Camarilla overnight. They are now considered a political tour de force in the Camarilla, just pretty much with that ritual. And also sets them forever in conflict with Clan Assamite, who pretty much have never forgiven them.
Well, and there you have it. That's sort of the hard and fast Tremere history lesson of how this wonderful clan came to be. As you could definitely tell, they are not without their trials and tribulations. They have had setback after setback, but the idea, another thing that is at the cornerstone of the clan, is that they persevere. They push through. They find a way to win. If not win, survive.
And their clan motto is, by our will, we will conquer. That is the mindset of Clan Tremere. And as you can see from this early history, that is basically what they've done. And so the first few centuries of the Tremere has just been, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, we are willing to do it, which is both admirable and frightening. And it also is kind of deplorable, because that means that the clan as a whole tends to be very ruthless, and which makes them a very interesting clan in the modern Knights, which we will be getting into next episode.
That's right. All right. Well, we both hope you very much enjoyed this first in the series of Clan Tremere. And please stay tuned, because there's much, much more to come. All right. I have been John.
I'm Jen.
And we look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And if you want to get a hold of us outside of our normal podcast hours, you can find us at Podcast by Night on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter at By Night Podcast, or you can email us with any questions, thoughts, opinions, anything you want to communicate to us. You can do that at podcastbynight@gmail.com.